Take in the air. Take in the air. We're gonna need some air right now. Because we're about to do some transmuting right now. We're about to transmute some shit. Just breathe for a second. Just breathe for a second. Very uncomfortable topic. I can see why the room would be empty at a time like this. It's not something you would want to address, right? This topic is not something that people just want to, it's not exactly the first topic at the dinner table, is it? Huh. And I didn't exactly want to dive into this topic either. This tangent came off of just dealing with semen retention and just diving into semen retention, and my brother is actually who got me to go back into it, but he told me that when he started to dive into it, it brought up certain emotions, because when you're healing, when you're getting resensitized to certain things that you lost, you get resensitive, and with the feelings come memories, okay? Because from this book that I read called American Circumcision, The Hidden Trauma, our memories get repressed based on if they're too traumatic to deal with at the certain time, and they get stored in our body, okay? And until we reconnect with those feelings, we're not ever going to uncover the memories. And so when you start to reconnect with your sacral chakra, you start to play around with semen retention, and you happen to be a circumcised male, you start to power up those energy centers again. You start to resensitize those energy centers again. You gain access to the memories. Okay, and so for me, being a few days in with semen retention, as I read this book about circumcision, see, it's all culminating, because as I go into, reconnecting and rebalancing my sacral chakra, and I learn about what happened to my sacral chakra when I was born, and I learn about the trauma that happened when I was born, I can access the memories from a place of feeling. And what this book talks about is how when we get traumatized, we to go away from those memories, we lose access from those memories, and they get stored in our body. And sometimes they stay locked away, and it manifests in different ways. And we're going to go into that. But before I get too far away from my notes, thanks for joining. This is Power of Transformation. My name is Coach Jeezy, and today we're talking about the trauma of circumcision. And the law that we're going to be talking about, the natural hermetic principle that we're going to be talking about, is the law of cause and effect. As we'll uncover circumcision as a cause to many effects, many untold effects, all right? But the first term I want to go over is a term called zetics, okay? And the term zetetic has been out of popularity recently, but in the past it's been used to describe somebody who is a skeptic, okay? And we're going to use the term zetetic a lot more often here, but what I want to define it as is believing what you see with your eyes, okay? So there's a way of instead of like believing what people say and believing what you read, right? You can just decide to like wait and withhold any judgment until you see with your eyes, and then base your judgment based off what you actually see and what you can touch. And so erring towards, and the other thing about zetics is erring towards a questioning nature and an investigating nature, meaning like I'd rather look for myself. So it doesn't always mean physically see. It could mean like you're holding judgment on an idea until you have checked for yourself. So instead of just believing that entire whole book, you want to go experience something for yourself, right? So that's zetics. And so what it is you err towards questions and investigations rather than answers and dogmas. Because as we know, dogmas can get you stuck in a pigeonhole, all right? When you start to believe that this is always true, you start to behave based on those beliefs, and then you can start to behave in weird and stupid ways because that belief is a dogma, okay? And so rather have a questioning nature, you can get you a lot farther. All right, and the reason why this is the most passionate topic I've ever researched, and the reason why this is the first, time I've researched something and it brought me to tears, and being that I'm working on semen retention, I'm highly sensitive, so I actually went through some emotional pain and some physical pain as feeling like, oh, holy shit, my shit got ripped off, and it did happen, and I never forgot, and we never forget. I'm reading, and I'm learning about myself. I'm learning that I never forgot. Okay, and it's painful. It's super painful for a guy to realize that he never forgot about that shit. And there's a lot of psychology in that, but personally, I have a lot more birth trauma than circumcision. When I was born, my right thumb was attached to my left heel, and my left pinky was attached to my right heel, and my arms were crossed and my legs were crossed. So I was born with my hands and legs in a bundle, 2 months premature, through cesarean section, because I was never going to come out of the womb in that fused state. So I never fully developed. Okay, I was an underdeveloped fetus. Okay, and they had to take me out of the cesarean section. As I'm talking about it, I'm shivering right now, because they had to pull me out. Okay, put me on the table and cut me apart. Okay, it's I'm putting on my armor right now, because if I didn't have my armor on, I'd be crying right now. Okay, because this is literally traumatic. Okay, so I was born, they had to cut shit up. Okay, not only that, I got circumcised. Not only that, I had to go in and out of the hospital for the first few months because I had club foot, and I because of the operations on my feet. And so going in and out of the hospital and just dealing with those issues. Not only that, I got circumcised. So it just brought up so much more for me, because I've shut all that out. And how much did I forget? How much did I remember? Those are questions. Those are all these questions that make this topic it lights a fire under me. All right. So we already went over the connection between pain, emotion, and memory, and how memory is stored in the body. And the reason I have the topic pinned that I do is because the book that I just read right before this, or the thing we were just learning about on our show right before this, is the blueprint for mind control. Thank you, Lee. Thank you. The blueprint for mind control lays out that the first step for mind control is break the target. Step number 2 is eliminate options or present the ultimatum, and step number 3 is harvest the energy. So we uncover circumcision as the very first step of mind control, because let me just bring to the end right now. At the end of the book, they compare circumcision with rape. Hallelujah! That's how the elite are controlling the Hollywood actors and the politicians, because they rape them while they're young, aka break the target, so that it's easy to harvest the energy. When you break the target while they're young, it's easier to present the ultimatum and harvest the energy. Well, when they're a child, it's easy to present the ultimatum. When you're a kid strapped in a chair with your legs open, you don't exactly have an option. There's no ultimatum needed to be presented. You already eliminated the options, so it's easy to harvest our energy. So this is uncomfortable, because what I'm uncovering is this whole place is a human farm. Welcome to it. Welcome to America. All right. Circumcision has been assumed benign and trivial, and it's the most common surgery in America. Okay. It's assumed to be that they forgot it, and part of the underpinning of that assumption is that a newborn doesn't have any memory. And a newborn isn't sensitive, and a newborn doesn't have intricate feelings and delicate feelings, but a newborn does have delicate feelings, and a newborn probably has all of the sensory perception that an adult has. And the problem is, they're not testing exactly anything that will make circumcision look bad. They're not going to put any money towards any testing that's going to make circumcision look bad. For example, they're not going to study the intricacies of a newborn. They're not ever going to look into the intricacies and the sensitivities of a 1-day-old, because they understand that we're cutting those dicks off, and those 1-day-olds better just be thoughtless, feelingless things, because as soon as they turn into humans, we're cutting their dicks off. What are we doing that for to the 1-day-olds? It's painful and it's traumatic, and they never forget. So it makes it look really bad. And don't let me make this author, Donald Goldman, by the way, we're giving the Jewish people a rap for circumcising. This guy that wrote this book is Jewish, okay? So don't just be all racist and think that it's the Jews, all right? This is it's way more than just race, okay? This is about control. Just look past colors and look past labels already. This is about control and sovereignty, and the person you need to start with is yourself, all right? So, yeah, it's called Circumcision, the Hidden Trauma, and it's by Ronald Goldman. All right. So why is female circumcision referred to as female genital mutilation, while male circumcision is not referred to as male genital mutilation? What we have is the first layer of the double standard that makes it okay for us as a society to treat men worse than women. Okay? Because as soon as you think that it's okay to cut the most sensitive part of me off, and you can call that circumcision, like it's a medical safe procedure, but if you start even thinking about cutting a part of her off, it's called female genital mutilation. What we have is the same thing where we're eating pigs and China's eating dogs, and we think it's weird that China eats dogs, and China thinks it's weird that we eat pigs. They have pet pigs, we got pet dogs. See how it's just a cultural thing and everybody's under control? Everybody's under mind control eating animals? Well, we got the same thing going on here, because in Africa, they think it's weird that you would mutilate a man, and they mutilate the women, and they circumcise the women. And they're like, why would you mutilate the men? And we're like, why would you mutilate the women? And we circumcise the men. Can you see the mind control going on? Okay, so we have these cultural differences that make you think that, oh yeah, we're different than them. Those savages, they circumcise women. But it's all savage. Because we have a clitoris. We have a clitoris. I hate to say it for any men in here that didn't know that you had a clitoris and it got cut off. But that's essentially what it is, right? Male circumcision should also be referred to as genital mutilation. The fact that we use different terms for these similar procedures exposes the double standard in thinking it's harmful for girls but not harmful for boys. Most of the world rejects circumcision. 80% of the world's men are intact. No other country practices non-religious infant circumcision. Pair that with the fact that we are the most violent country in the world. See, are you getting the picture here? We're gonna move on, but before we move on, let's just go over this test here. All right. So what I want you to do is first take your hand. All right, take your hand and rub the back of your hand. Just rub the back of your hand. First, rub it softly. Okay. All right. How does that feel? Okay, it feels okay. Now rub it hard. Okay, it kind of felt the same. All right, so that's kind of how sensitive the nerves are on the top of your hand. Now, all right, let's take the bottom of your hand, or the palm. All right, now let's rub hard. Okay, I felt a certain way. Now rub ever so softly, like just glide over it. Okay, and feel how it's kind of fires up. You feel how the palm of your hand fires up. What causes that to happen is something called Meissner's corpuscles, okay? And those are highly sensitive nerve cells that exist on certain areas of the body. The bottoms of your feet, the palms of your hand, and for men and women, the genitals. And so basically, they want you to think that they're just cutting off the tip of something, but what they're actually cutting off is the point on your body with the highest concentration of Meissner's corpuscles. And if in a woman, this would be the clitoris. Okay? So just because they have different names for different things, and they call this the foreskin and that the clitoris, don't make it think that there's a biological difference, because as far as the nerve content, as far as how sensitive you are, that's the most sensitive part of your body. And throughout the decades, there have been multiple different excuses for why we circumcise. All right, in other words, there's been decades of excuses. All right, in 1830, epilepsy. In 1860, masturbation. In 1870, clubfoot. In 1880, diarrhea. In 1900s, sexual immorality. In 1920, penile cancer. 1940, venereal disease. 1950, cervical cancer. 1960, STDs. 1980s, urinary tract infection. And today, they're using the threat of HIV. They're telling you that if you cut off your dick, you're going to have a lower risk of HIV. And they got people in Africa cutting off their dick and having more sex. Can you see how that's retarded? Because when you get people to think that this leads you to have a lower risk of this lifestyle, you're going to double the lifestyle that you do. And you're actually going to double your chance of contracting that disease. So I wouldn't want to try it. I wouldn't want to test that. But we live on a human farm, all right? So it turns out that Bill and Melinda Gates have been pushing circumcision to prevent AIDS for like 20 years, all right? And they have a big hand in the political movement to make this thing legal and ubiquitous, all right, in the last century, all right? And so, and the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation, same thing, all right? So both of these elites are pushing towards circumcision. Why? Why are we the only country? You know, why are we the only country that does this non-religious thing? It starts to paint a perfectly clear picture to me, all right? So, we think that infants are dummies. Why do we think infants are dummies? Upon research, it turns out babies have just as much acuity and awareness as full-grown adults. That's hard. That's hard to wrap your head around. See, I have a level of compassion for any new parents. I feel really, I feel you. I feel the pain that you would feel upon realizing that your child has much awareness and emotion and acuity on day one as they ever will have. And in fact, they won't ever have more sensitivity than on day one. See, that's a scary perspective for any new parents who've circumcised their children. What about the idea that your kid has never been more sensitive than they ever have been on day one? Because that's the other perspective we're fucking with. We're fucking with the idea that your kid is born pristine and then over time, over sensitivities, gets more and more desensitized. By one, they're already desensitized for all the things they've gotten exposed to. That means that there's only one time that's there's only one time that's the worst time to circumcise a child. There's like if there was one that would be the absolute worst time to circumcise a child, when would it be? Day one. Because they've never been more sensitive, they're never going to be more sensitive, and it's never going to be more traumatic than on day one. Alright? Circumcision is never neutral. It's not an incision, but a removal of the most sensitive organ of the body. Intactivism and the genital integrity movement is a political movement. Look up intactivism if you want to look up hashtags about this this movement of people who are protesting and trying to get this thing changed legally. But in my opinion, the best way to change this is through education. Alright? Is to get people to make the change for themselves and make the decisions for themselves and make the connection for themselves. Because for me, this is all about my personal healing. And all I want to do is plant the seed for somebody to heal themselves. I'm not trying to heal you. I'm talking about healing myself. All right, so there are many nurses and doctors who have witnessed circumcision and speak out against it. All right, and so this is the next thing we're going to talk about, all right? We talk about social engineering, and we talk about how, most of these things that we think are just normal, all right, are actually products of advertising or social engineering. Things like smoking cigarettes, things like eating bacon for breakfast, things like eating eggs for breakfast. Those are all product of collusion between advertising and medical. All right, so basically, doctors recommend doing this, and advertisers collude with the doctors, and they make a national rollout of advertisement, and it gets everybody to buy it because doctors signed on, and now everybody eats bacon for breakfast and smokes cigarettes because doctors recommended it. Well, what about the idea that everybody circumcises as a product of social engineering? All right, because in 1888, John Harvey Kellogg, that's right, Kellogg's cereal, John Harvey Kellogg, wrote extensively about sexual health and masturbation. And he blamed masturbation for over 30 ailments. This weirdo blamed masturbation for over 30 ailments, including shyness and insomnia. Kellogg discovered and published 2 cures. Are you ready for this? Because this doctor is not just a doctor. Dr. Kellogg, hold on, he's not... Kellogg discovered and published 2 cures. 1, Kellogg's breakfast cereal, and 2, for more persistent masturbators, circumcision. Soon, the journey of American Medical Association took this position, and America was off to the races. So, in 1888, started the campaign to start to get America to circumcise. And from there, it was started off as voluntary, right? Grown men doing it, and then it became semi-voluntary, like high school, right? Like, you're 15, time to do it. You're 15, time to do it. You got to do it. And then, what is it now? What is it now? What did it turn into? See, was this just a 100-year plan? Did somebody always mean for it to get to this? Because this is how they might be instituting the microchip thing. Pay attention to what's going on, right? Because if circumcision used to start off as a scary-ass thing, I would never fucking cut my dick off. What the fuck? You're tripping, right? But then they start to get it to be voluntary, all right? Some of these people cutting their dick off. And then they start to institute it in high schools. Like, you're a senior, time to cut your dick off. And then it starts to happen to babies. And now you have no choice. They just cut your dick off, right? Something so weird, right? Like cutting your dick off got pulled through something called the Overton window, where it starts out extreme, but through media and mental manipulation and massage, it goes from weird to fucking, yeah, my kid got his dick cut off. Yeah, my dick's cut off. Hell yeah, we cut our dicks off. Something so extreme as that became, hell yeah, we cut our dicks off. Well, they want to put a chip in your fucking body. And you could start off by saying, fuck no, they're not fucking putting a chip in my body. You're not going to chip me, bitch. You're not going to put the mark of the beast in me, right? So they start off by just saying, oh yeah, anybody can come put a chip in their body. It's voluntary. So it starts off, only some people put a chip in their body, right? And then later on, they start doing it in high school, and then it becomes something that you have to do if you want to have a good college career. So I'm going to put a chip in my body, I'm a senior. And then from there, it turns into, you're 15, time to put a chip in your body, right? And then 10 years later, 50 years later, it turns into, oh, baby got a chip in his body. Baby got chips in their body because right when they're born, because that's just how it is. Everybody does it, right? But can you see how if somebody wanted to get a population to adopt a crazy ass notion and they had a million amount of years to do it because they're a non-living entity, it doesn't matter if it takes 100 years? Because 100 years ago, cutting your dick off at birth was some weird ass shit. And 100 years from now, putting a microchip in your body could probably be as ubiquitous as circumcision is now. How's that for you? See, because we're getting into the mechanics of mind control and how it works over generations and generations and generations. All right, it's not just like a clock going in front of your face and getting you to act like a chicken. It's not that. It's massaging humans over time to get them to adopt hellish principles, like cutting your dick off and putting a chip in your body. All right. It appears that from the developmental and neurological perspective, newborn infants are capable of experiencing trauma and retaining a memory of it. We have projected our own ability to consciously remember our infancy onto the infant. We store the memories of our infancy, but we generally do not have access to them. In a survey of psychologists, the majority agreed that forgetting was due to retrieval failure and not the loss of information storage. So we don't ever lose the memory. We just lose the ability to access the memory. And like I said in the beginning, when you start to reconnect with your feelings, when you start to reconnect with your body or maybe your chakra centers, what this does is open the portal for you to access the memories that have been repressed. All right, I did this before when I accessed memories of me getting bullied. All right, and I'm probably going to do this very soon to access the memories of my birth trauma. All right, so so when we're talking about energy work, Reiki work, we're also talking about that type of work. All right, Wilhelm Reich. Oh my goodness, Wilhelm Reich is in this book. See, Wilhelm Reich was in the Mind Control book, and Wilhelm Reich is also in the American Circumcision book. So holy moly! Wilhelm Reich says psychic tension cannot be without a somatic representation or a physical representation. What? Psychic tension, emotional tension cannot be without physical representation. And in fitness, I know this. I know that we store stress as musculoskeletal tension. All right. Wilhelm Reich says that it can't be without a physical representation. He called the body's tension and defenses against emotional expression armor. Okay? Both men and women can become armored. Women who have been raped or assaulted develop tension or armoring around the vaginal walls and pelvic area. This musculoskeletal tension affects the organs of the area and leads to further disease like PCOS or infertility. The total expression of the armored individual is that of holding back. This expression has to be taken literally. The organism expresses the fact that it is holding back. The shoulders are pulled back, the thorax pulled up, the chin is held rigid, respiration is shallow, the lower back is arched, pelvis is retracted and dead, the legs are stretched out stiffly or lack expression. These are some of the main attitudes of holding back. Or you could just be holding back from ever pursuing your goals. Okay? Okay? Because we're talking about me right now. When we're talking about this shit, alright? The body also holds feelings and memories. When I was reading this book, my shit got itchy. I'm not gonna lie. It felt stings. I felt itchy. It's like I'm digging back into my own memory bank. Just to keep it 100 with you right now, okay? Again, going into birth trauma, people who were born cesarean have an intense need for physical contact. Me. Umbilical cord difficulties develop throat, speech, and stuttering issues. Those born premature feel like they're chronically rushed. So I was born premature. I was born cesarean. I was born fused together. They don't have what I was born in this book. Okay, because I was born, my feet and hands were connected together. So when you talk about birth trauma, I need to go ahead and go contact them and let them do a study on me because I'm a new case. Okay, I got my hands and feet were together when I was born, and I had to get cut out 2 months early, and I almost didn't survive. So So now I feel chronically rushed. All right, so suicide. Those who have asphyxiation or suffocation. So they did studies on suicides. All right, so what they did was they get a large amount of suicide cases, and they studied the births of those suicide cases. And so what they found was those who chose asphyxiation or suffocation were more likely to have breathing difficulties at birth. Those who chose mechanical means like weapons or guns were likely to suffer from a breech delivery or the use of forceps, basically a use of a tool to pull you out. Right? Those who suffer from so those who used drugs to commit suicide were more likely to have been born to a mother who has been given drugs at birth. So what we have here is evidence that the trauma, the most traumatic births, okay, get stored in the human, and they stay until they boil out as suicide. See how deep-seated that trauma has to be to where it stays with you until you eventually kill yourself in the same way that the trauma happened to you? That means that you're fixated on that trauma. That means that you've been burying that trauma so much that it's coming back to kill you. Literally, okay? Literally. So what does that mean for circumcision? What does that mean for me becoming assaulted by some dude while my mom's in the other room? Okay, because the fact is my mom's in the other room and some dude's doing this, and so I'm basically burying this sexual rape. And how is that gonna manifest? Is it gonna manifest in me being in prison by the age of 18? I don't know, because why else would an 18-year-old boy need to go to prison? I mean, 18-year-old boys don't generally go to prison, right? But what if the effect of all of the trauma that I went through, meaning I was born on the operating table, they had to cut and slice me, all right? I was fighting for my life. I couldn't breathe. I was small. I had to come back for operations. So when I was born fighting for my life, can you see how me fighting through high school and fighting until I end up in prison is now not a surprise? And even now, I'm fighting myself for health. Like, I'm constantly fighting my old ways. And no matter how it looks to anybody else, nobody sees how much I'm fighting myself but me. All right? But if I was born fighting for my life, can you see how the trauma that happens to us at birth repeats itself? We hold on to the birth traumas throughout adulthood and express them in different ways. All right, and I already went over how I was born. I had birth defects. I was fused at the feet and hands. And I was circumcised. Shit. I mean... Sorry, when I talk about my fucking birth trauma, it makes the circumcision not seem that bad, because goddamn, I almost died. Damn, shit. But for months, dealing with complications from birth, children are showing that they can recall memories of the incident. Hypnotherapy on both children and adults during reliving or primal sessions reveals that the same movements and motor control and noises exhibited by newborn babies is exhibited by the patient, all right? Proving that the traumatic memories were stored deep in the psyche, meaning, all right, Bob doesn't make noises like that anymore. Bob's making noises like a newborn, all right, because Bob is reaccessing the traumatic memories that got stored in his tissues. They get stored in your body, and until you start reconnecting to your body, you won't have access to the memories. We're getting a key into psychology. You see how psychology trying to pretend like it's separate from physiology, and physiology trying to pretend like it's separate from psychology, and they're missing out on all the goods? All right, because when you go into the holistic viewpoint, you realize that we store our psychic trauma in the body, in the chakra centers. So when I start powering my sacral chakra center through semen retention, I'm actually giving myself the ability to reaccess the memories of the trauma. Okay, because it takes prana. It takes prana to open up portals and go into time. Okay, and to go into time travel. Basically what we're talking about if you want to access those traumatic memories. So people that are out of prana, people that don't have energy, the memories are just going to be manifesting in physical ailments, in physical ways. All right, one important long-term effect is learned helplessness. Experiencing a traumatic event where no action can help may lead to a chronic inability to act. This has been demonstrated in rats. Okay? So when you traumatize a rat, they end up developing a chronic inability to act or learned helplessness. Since rats are less developed than infants, and older children are more developed than infants, and rats get traumatized into learned helplessness, we can assume that infants can get traumatized into learned helplessness. And I could say that I can even just honestly say that I suffer from helplessness. Like, if I was just to list out the things that I wanted to do but I didn't, You know, like, I'm comfortable sitting in front of the phone talking about books, but there's things that I've wanted to do, but I don't have the belief in myself to do. Like, I would have been in LA, like, trying out for theater and trying to get up on stage and be in front of people already. If I had the probably what I was missing when they cut my dick off, alright? So, learned helplessness. I'm feeling that. Infants denying trauma in infants is consistent with recognizing the effect of trauma in rats and older children. It turns out that trauma involving disfigurement are among those that will most likely promote deep depressions and major character changes. So what the author is doing is he's taking studies from other traumas and saying, well, if that's true about that trauma, why wouldn't it be true about circumcision? That's what he's saying when he says that disfigurement. He didn't because they're not see, here's the thing, here's the important note. They're not studying circumcision patients. They're not studying boys who got circumcised. So he's pulling psychology studies from other things like getting your finger cut off. Okay, and disfigurement is some of the most traumatizing psychological events in an infant's life. So since they're not studying circumcision, they're not going to do any science on that because that would probably totally wipe out the practice of it. He has to pull from other things, but it's consistent. Okay, because you're losing your dick, and it's not just the tip. It's an organ. It's organs. Okay, and it happens to be the most sensitive part of your entire body. Your entire body. And when the more I wrap my head around that, the more I just feel pain, you know. Circumcision is a traumatic event. Because it is physical trauma experienced most often in infancy, it may have a particularly damaging impact. Circumcision and related feelings can be remembered or relived under special circumstances, usually in a therapeutic setting. Young children have remembered their circumcision and associated feelings and details. Circumcision of older children has resulted in increased aggressiveness, withdrawal, and reduced adaptation. So, circumcision of older children leading to reduced adaptation. Meaning they're paralyzed. They're paralyzed. You're paralyzing the 10-year-old boy. You're paralyzing the 15-year-old boy. I've been felt paralyzed my whole life, honestly, in different ways. You know, mainly creatively, maybe sexually. I don't know. We'll wait on that, right? But a whole life can be shaped by an old trauma, remembered or not. Men are trained to suppress emotions and feelings, so very little study is being done in this arena. Accepting any truth about circumcision means accepting victimhood in a certain sense, and most men do not want to acknowledge the idea that they have been a victim of sexual trauma. Try telling a man he's been raped. You want to talk about a man feeling weak? You want to talk about a man feeling emasculated? Try telling a man he's been raped. Imagine reading a book and realizing you've been raped. You want to talk about feeling emasculated? You want to talk about feeling assaulted? You want to talk about feeling harassed? Does it matter that I was 1 day old? Does it really? Does it really matter? Because based on this science, I was 1 day old and fucking kicking. I was 1 day old and sensitive as fuck, and sensitive as I'll ever be. Okay, so, the fact that our culture is trained to suppress emotions, could it be stemming from the trauma that happened, the emotional, sexual, psychotrauma, physical trauma that happened when we were 1 day old? Could that be leading to our suppression of pain? And so it turns out, when they do studies of women in Africa, where they circumcise women, the culture there is, guess what? Those women suppress pain. Those women in the culture of Africa, where the women get circumcised, their natural belief is that women are supposed to be strong and not feel pain. Is that a natural belief of all women, or is that something that's ingrained to the culture because all of them have been circumcised and they had to suppress that traumatic pain and not recognize that their society is traumatizing them? So instead they adopt a culture that they adopt a belief that aligns with the culture. They have to adopt, women suppress pain and we don't feel it. We don't feel anything, right? Well, what do you think's going on here? It's dogs and chickens. Every time, it's dogs and pigs. Whenever I say it's dogs and pigs, you know that I'm talking about the cultural difference between the fact that we eat pigs and China eats dogs, and we think China's weird for eating dogs. China thinks we're weird for eating pigs, when we're all fucking weird. Okay, well, when I say it's fucking dogs and pigs, when we're talking about this circumcision shit, it's the same thing, alright? So, we're not supposed to be all, I don't feel. We're not supposed to be all macho, alright? We've got traumatized into that, okay? Because real men feel. Real men feel, real men feel, real men heal. Real men feel, real men heal, real men do, definitely don't kill. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying, man. Look. A certain sense, most men don't want to acknowledge that idea that they've been a victim of sexual trauma. The connection between circumcision and low male self-esteem reported by some men suggests that it could have been a significant psychological impact on a man's life. If we feel low self-esteem and shame, we often project it by attacking the self-esteem of others. Welcome to America, where that's what we do. We attack self-esteem of others online. We attack the self-esteem of others wherever we're at. Hold on one second. I gotta... Alright. Apple. Shame isolates a man from himself and others. He rejects himself before others can reject him. In that sense, shame can prevent a man from ever dealing with circumcision trauma. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to talk about it. See? People are ashamed to talk about it. Every time I talk about it, the room clears out. If I talk about it in public, the room definitely clears out. Alright? People do not want to talk about this. We're talking about recognizing some shit. We're talking about recognizing some traumatic shit. And if you're not sensitive enough to remember when you were 1 day old, fuck, I'll do it by myself. I'll do that shit by myself. Neurological reactions to the pain. The pain of circumcision limits and qualifies all subsequent experiences of pleasure, which from now on are experienced upon a background of genital pain that is now deeply buried in the subconscious brain. Say what? Say what? See, after circumcision, anything you ever feel from then on is felt behind a static of pain that is buried deep in your psyche. Let me read that quote one more time, okay? Because that was powerful. The pain of circumcision limits and qualifies all subsequent experiences of pleasure, which from now on are experienced upon a background of genital pain that is now deeply buried in the subconscious brain. Now, this episode is called American Circumcision and the Blueprint of Mind Control, and so let's remember that the first step in the Blueprint of Mind Control is to break the target. And we know that the Hollywood and pedophile elite, what they do is they rape or anally rape children while they are very young in order to break the target. It's the same exact thing. See, the pain from the genital pain that comes from raping your butt or cutting your dick causes you to split your psyche. And what happens is the boy or young girl disassociates from their body, and they run into their mind or their mental plane to dissociate from the pain that's happening, which makes it easier for them to dissociate later on in life. When you do it to them early enough, you get them used to it. They start to think it's normal, and then they can walk around dissociated. Then they can become a celebrity, walk around disconnected from their body, doing whatever you want them to do. You can tell them to, fuck that politician. You can tell them to go shoot that music video because they're disconnected from the pain that they feel in their body or their emotions. They're in their mind or their ego. So when we're talking about circumcision, it's the same thing. You want to talk about America's ego problem? We're talking about it right now. We're talking about America's ego problem right now. Y'all don't want to talk about it, though. See? Everybody wants to talk about it till we start talking about it. See? Look. Everybody wants to start talking about it till we start talking about it. You want to talk about the ego problem? Let's talk about it. We're born the most sensitive we will ever be and get more desensitized from there. Circumcision happens at the time where we will never be more sensitive. The potential for trauma is never higher than on this day, yet we go for the fucking dick. They've connected circumcision with sadomasochistic tendencies, or S&M. Yes, my first time being tied down for a sexual act was my first day of life, so now I like getting tied down for sexual acts. Is that a surprise? Because the whole pattern we're talking about of trauma and traumatized kids is whatever you traumatize with them, that sticks with them. It stores into their body, and it manifests in similar ways throughout life. They even kill themselves in the same way. Those who have been violated generally have a problem with anger and direct it either inward towards the self or outward towards others. Hi, my name is Gerald, and I have anger problems, and I direct them inwards at myself and outwards at you, but it's really just trauma that I induced from when I was born. Hello, healing, see? I'm literally healing right now in front of you because do you see how mad I'm not right now? Do you see how mad I was in previous videos? See how what studying this subject has been bringing me? It's been bringing me healing. See, I didn't know what was causing the pain, so I couldn't find out, seek it out, feel it, cry it out. Guess what I did while I was reading this book? Guess what I did while I'm doing semen retention and reading this book? Guess what I'm doing at night? Finding out, seeking out, going time traveling, feeling what I felt, feeling how helpless I felt. Feeling naked and helpless and torn and broken, and what the fuck am I doing in this world? What the fuck is this place? Huh? You want to talk about my birth trauma? We're talking about it right now. When I was born and my hands were connected to my feet, my thumb was connected to my leg, and my pinky was connected to my leg, and I was born and they were cutting my fucking hand off my ankle and my hand off my ankle so they could proceed to cut my dick off, I'm wondering, what the fuck is this place? What am I doing here? What the fuck is this hell? Okay? Okay? That's how I came into Earth. So when I come out fighting and when I come out aggressive, now we know where the shit's stemming from. Okay? Now we know the root of this anger. And now I know the root of this anger. See? Now I can work with it. See? Because I feel the emotions right now. It could well up as tears. I could bring it up here and let it come out of my eyes as tears. I can bring it back down, let it go into my solar plexus chakra, breathe it in, use it as energy. I can work with the energy. I don't just have to cry it out. Okay? I can bring it in, pull it into my heart center, drive it into and use it with passion to keep delivering the message. All right, so those who have been violated generally have a problem with anger directed either inward towards the self or outward towards others. To the motherfuckers who think I'm angry and aggressive, I'm glad we found the root. Let's talk about the potential long-term effects of psychology. In other words, what's wrong with Gerald? All right, in my notes, I make fun of myself, all right? But there's a list of potential harmful effects of circumcision on the psychology. All right, and what I said was, this is the list of things that are wrong with me. All right. Reduced emotional expression. Discomfort related to the topic of circumcision. Avoidance of intimacy. Distrust. Low self-esteem. Excessive or inappropriate anger. Recurrent thoughts and distress, sexual anxieties, phobias and dysfunction, limited capacities for pleasure. We didn't even talk about the Meissner's corpuscles. Oh, we did talk about the Meissner's corpuscles, or the very sensitive nerves that you lose, so you lose the ability to fully orgasm. Imagine finding out that you never really orgasmed. Hold on, wait. Imagine finding out that you're never going to fully orgasm. Would you be mad? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if women would be mad, when men would be mad. I don't care if it matters if you're a woman or a man, but just imagine finding out that you're never going to orgasm. Not in the way nature wanted you to. Eesh, that stings. When I say that, my fucking dick burns. Imagine hearing this sentence. You're never going to orgasm the way nature intended. When I say that, my dick fucking stings. I feel it in my left nut. It just, you're telling me I'm never gonna orgasm the way God wanted me to orgasm because these fuckers cut off the most sensitive part? Fuck, kill me now, fucking kill me now. What the fuck? What do you expect? How do you expect me to respond to that? How do you expect me to respond to some truth like that? Huh? Wouldn't you, imagine spending 30 years trying to fuck, realizing you never fucking nothing. Kind of gets you mad, right? See? Imagine if we didn't get circumcised, and you know, there may be people that are not circumcised in the room or whatnot, but you know, sex is totally different when a man is uncircumcised and a woman is uncircumcised, because it begins before penetration, right? Imagine this. You can orgasm without penetration because your sensitive parts are on the outside, and you could just go like that and orgasm. What? See? I'm getting mad just thinking about it. But imagine the most sensitive parts of your Meissner's corpuscles. It would feel like this. Okay? Because there's Meissner corpuscles here. There's Meissner's corpuscles here. There's about 10 times as much in the sensitive skin on the clitoris or the sensitive skin on the foreskin. And so sex is totally different for people that are natural. Okay? Because what happens is those most sensitive skin touches first, and then sex resumes from there. And you don't have to have all this... You don't have to have all that going on. It's totally different. I'm mad just thinking about it. All right, but that's our XXX part for the day. We're going to go into the mother-child relationship now, all right? The problem is the infant-mother relationship is a model for the infant-peer relationship. The relationship that you have with your mom is the model you have for all relationships from here on out. And so... child psychologists know of something called attachment. Attachment is the secure bonded connection between mother and child that happens as soon as the child is born, and it includes constant contact and constant eye contact, constant communication, and it's very sensitive. It has the name attachment for a reason, because if you break it, you can't repair it. Okay, if you break the attachment that exists between the mother and child, okay, the loss of trust is like unattainable. You can't regain that. So it's very important that you spend as much time with the newborn as possible. And they uncover that, in our society we spend 50% less time with our newborns, whereas hunter-gatherer societies spend about like 80% of their time with the moms, spend about 80% of the time with the newborns, whereas here it's 50% or less. So again, our relationship with our parents is a key in how and why we're disconnected from each other, because if we're disconnected from mom, we're not going to be good at connecting to anybody. And so our society is disconnected for a reason, and what we're going to be uncovering here is that circumcision is a clear break in what we're talking about. That attachment, taking the kid away for even 5 minutes, all right, would be a problem. But you're not just taking the kid away for 5 minutes. You're taking the kid away for 5 to 40 minutes and cutting his dick off. So there's a little bit more to the breakage than just taking them away and losing sight of your mom. You're losing trust because you're crying for your mom and she's not coming. Imagine that. Imagine crying for your mom and she's not coming. Because that's what happens on day one when you let them take your baby away and cut their dick off. Attachment is especially sensitive in the first week, and to take a child away on the first day for even a few minutes can affect the attachment bond, and what happens during circumcision is enough to sever the attachment bond. We think babies don't know shit, but there's a fucking soul in there, you dumb bitch. That baby has a conscious soul. Hey, I apologize for my notes. That baby has a conscious soul and it's recording everything. So when you close your heart and mind off to what's happening to little Timmy in the other room, you close yourself mentally from the screams and the pain that little Timmy remembers, and it affects your guys' relationship for here on the fuck out, okay? So the whole process of circumcision, where you let the doctors take the baby away, and you're like, oh, bye, Timmy, and Timmy's getting taken away, carried in, strapped into a chair. And I'm not going to go over the tools they use to circumcise because it's going to be too painful for me. But basically, the child goes through this sexual physical torture process, and mom's not there to answer any of your cries. So this breaks the trust between mother and child. This also ends up leading to deep-seated guilt for the mom. All right. Research has shown that maternal anxiety during pregnancy affects the birth itself and infant outcome. Research has shown that maternal anxiety during pregnancy affects the birth itself and the infant outcome. Your feelings affect prolonged labor, complications, low birth weight, 4 pounds, and more. So in essence, your guilt about the circumcision or any disagreement between you and father about the circumcision will affect baby. So I was born with birth defects and complications, so when I read this, I'm taking it personal because I've always questioned, like, what the hell did mom do with me that she didn't do with the other kids that she had? Why was I born like this, And, it's fascinating to keep learning about this. That's all I'm going to say. Young boys statistically get less time with mother after the first year. This, along with the trauma of circumcision, can result in a loss of trust between baby and mother. It leads to withdrawal and, of course, a loss of respect for women in general. It leads to a loss of respect for women in general. Mothers who have observed the circumcision of their child have shown signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. So, what does that tell you about circumcision? See, now I gotta insert my opinion, because we have become so far detached from our nature and our heart center and our feelings that we let people do shit that if we saw it would traumatize us. How disconnected from your heart do you have to be to believe in a system that does things to your baby that if you saw it, it would traumatize you? We're not even just talking about traumatizing the baby anymore. There's a reason why they separate you from your kid before they cut his dick off. Because if you saw someone cut your kid's dick off, you would get traumatized. It's just what the research is showing, buddy. What is done to children, they will do to society. What we do to children, they will do to society. And when you cut my shit off, I'm going to grow up cutting people and fighting people, all right? If circumcision lowers male self-esteem, then there will be a motivation to restore one's self-esteem by attacking or diminishing the self-esteem of others. Welcome to America. If circumcision disrupts the attachment bond between mother and son, it appears to be a contributing factor to men having relationship difficulties with women in adulthood. Welcome to America. When an infant gets circumcised and experiences insensitivity and ignorance to his pain, could this contribute in part to the American man's indifference to his own pain and by extension the pain of others around him? Wait up. So when he's getting circumcised and he's crying out for mom and mom doesn't come and he experiences somebody not giving a fuck about you. Imagine experiencing on day one, we don't give a fuck about you. Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na-da-da. They don't give a fuck about your dick. Da-na-na-na-na. See, so they're playing that song on day one of your birth, and what do you expect you're going to go through life thinking? You're going to be indifferent to your pain, and by extension, the pain of others around you. As I was. But I'm healing. I'm sensitive to my pain. I feel my pain, and by extension, I feel your pain. So we're changing. We're growing. See? I'm not who I was yesterday, even. Okay? Because this pain that I've been shutting out, so I can't feel it, and therefore I can't feel your pain, I'm getting rid of that. I'm rooting it out, and I'm going to feel it. I'm going to cry this pain out so that I can feel your pain, all right? And so we can heal together. Since most American surgeons are circumcised males... Yeesh! Since most American surgeons are circumcised males, could the high rates of surgeries by American physicians be in part a form of sublimation of feelings connected with their own circumcision? Could their early trauma of being cut be related to their attitude towards cutting others? Just remember that what you do to children, they do to society. And that surgeon was a child who got his dick cut off. What you do to children, they do to society. You want to not come for the baby when he's crying for your help? Guess how American man's going to act. He ain't going to call for you when you cry for help. Alright? You wanna sever the bond between man and his only representation of woman? By not letting mom come to save her baby? Guess how man's going to treat women? Guess how man's going to treat women? Because at every 25 seconds, a circumcision happens. And every 15 seconds, a man beats a woman. I don't know if it's connected. I don't know. I just know the facts, okay? Every 25 seconds, a man gets his dick cut off, and every 15 seconds, a man beats a woman. You do the math. I'm going to sit here reading my notes, all right? Because what you do to children, they do to society. Attitudes towards pain and stimulation are diminished. Passivity, reduced empathy, antisocial behavior, and the fact that America is the most violent country in the world. We are the most violent country in the world, and we are the only country that practices non-religious circumcision or boy rape. See, I got new names for this shit. Authors gotta be like, nice with it. People who got large followings gotta be careful what they say. I'm gonna just say what it is, right? I don't got a large following. They're not on my shit. They're raping boys on day one. You want to cut my dick off? You fucking anal. You fucking raped me. All right. And this leads to passivity, meaning you're not acting, you're not action, you're not taking action, you're not living to your you're not living to your best. Reduced empathy means you can't feel. You got traumatized. Your dick got cut off. The most sensitive part of your thing got cut off, so you can't really feel shit, let alone feel sex, let alone feel how Bob and Tim feel. You got antisocial behavior. Maybe you sit at home and on day one, the woman closest to you, on day one of existence, the woman close to you betrayed you by letting you get your dick cut off. So don't you think that you're going to be attacking women? Don't you think for me, I just been misogynistic. For me, I just called them bitches. I didn't hit them. But what's the difference? What's the difference? If I grow up calling women bitches, and I grow up fucking girls like they're pieces of meat, I might as well be hitting them. Because it's the same thing. I'm basically attacking them. Alright, so we're healing, alright? Remember that the mother-son relationship is a model for peer-to-peer relationships. If a boy felt betrayed by his only model for relationships, guess what his framework is? It's one of violence, and it stemmed from the trauma. Infants who had experienced both birth trauma and early maternal rejection were most likely to have engaged in violence when they grew up. I was in prison by 18, assault and battery charges. How the fuck did I end up in prison at 18? How does an 18-year-old child end up in prison? Huh? Could it be because they were traumatized violently and even sexually? Huh? Because I'm thinking so. In one cross-cultural study of the U.S., Ireland, and India, the U.S. had the highest rates of domestic violence. Is there a relationship between the fact that every 25 seconds a male infant is circumcised and every 15 seconds a man beats a woman? Sorry, I keep saying the things before I come to them in my note. They literally rip a hole in your sacral chakra. And what are the ramifications of ripping a wound in the sacral chakra meant for creation? Could this mean that you are going to be suffering from a lack of creativity? Yes, it does. Okay, because I've been suffering from that. All right. Foreskin stimulation and stimulating the G-spot stimulation, frenulum, male clitoris, Meissner corpuscles. So basically, it's actually found out that the foreskin actually has multiple different areas and organs, which each have their different types of orgasm. The frenulum, the banded ridge, the frenulum delta. There's like 3 organs that are on the tip, and it turns out by stimulating each of them individually, they can each get their own different type of orgasm. See, so imagine having that and having sex. See, we don't know what sex is, because even in women, this foreskin is supposed to be stimulating the G-spot, and you don't get that when you get a circumcised dick. So men and women are losing out. If you didn't notice, I'm not just here for the men. Women are missing out on sexual pleasure. Okay, unless you got a man that's not circumcised, all right? But the foreskin is for a lot more than we've been led to believe, all right? Testing showed a 75% reduction in sensitive nerves versus intact males. So basically, we do have tests on males who were intact, had sex, and then got circumcised. And it turns out 75% reduction in sensitivity. How mad would you be if you found out that all the fucking you ever been doing... I'm sorry to keep getting X-rated on Facebook. I know, I must want to get banned, right? But how mad would you be if you found out that all the sex you were having as a circumcised man was only 25% of the sensitivity that you could ever feel, and that you would never ever feel the full 100%? How would you feel knowing that all of your orgasms were only 25% of what they could have been, and that you would never feel? You would never. I'm sorry to get back into that question, but it keeps popping its ugly head, all right? The most sensitive site of a circumcised man's penis is the site of the circumcision scar. And the most sensitive part of an intact man is the foreskin. All right, imagine sex where your most sensitive part touches... All right, we already went over that. Fuck me, though. Fuck me, right? Fuck me. We can't even... But don't fuck me, because I don't even have my foreskin. The ending of the book continues to show graphs and correlate rising rates of child abuse, rape, and suicide, and theft. Oh, wait, what? So at the ending of the book, he presents graphs showing the rise of theft, showing the rise of rape, showing the rise of suicide, and then pointing fingers at the rise of circumcision. So he's not saying it outright, but basically the trauma that we're not expressing and we're not recognizing is fucking up society in different ways. And my question for you is that shit on accident? Is it on accident? I mean, we're the only country that does it. I mean, the people that's affecting our laws don't live here. The people that's affecting our laws live in other countries. Could we be getting attacked from different ways? See? We don't want to talk about that, right? But why do they debeak chickens? Why do they dehorn cows? And why do they cut off pigtails? Huh? I said, why do they debeak chickens, dehorn cows, and cut off pigtails? It's to keep the livestock in check. Okay? It's to keep the livestock in check. And I don't know what you've led yourself to believe about what you are and what role you play here. But the way that the people that control us and the people that are running this shit look at us as is livestock. And we are the highest, most highly mind-controlled society that has ever existed. And it coincides with the fact that we're the only country that practices non-religious circumcision. So this trauma, this sexual trauma, is evidence, okay, given James True's book, The Blueprint of Mind Control, this ubiquitous trauma that's being caused to all the children and been being caused to all the children is evidence of the mind control that pervades our society. In fact, it is the first step in breaking the target. Okay, because the effects don't just affect men. Obviously, it's affecting women, right? We're affecting man and women. We take the child from the mother. So the child is the man, the mother's the woman. It's not an assault on just boys. It's an assault on humanity. See, you get in the picture here? And we are being treated like farm animals or chattel. I think we need to step out and look at the fact that the world's masses are protesting right now. In France and Greece, they're shutting shit down. Yet, look at us. What are we doing? We're withdrawn. We're in a state of learned helplessness. We're traumatized into blind subservience. And it starts on day one. And if we're to have real peace, it has to start with the way that we treat kids on day one. All right. So I just want to remind you what happened to the Hippocratic Oath. It was supposed to be first, do no harm, and in fact, the first thing we're doing is harm. The first thing we're doing is harm. All right. And so the next thing we're going to talk about is the solution. Like I said, when my brother brought this topic to me, he started talking about foreskin restoration. And so if you go to foreskinrestore.com, if you check out foreskinrestore.com, that says Fireskin. Don't. It's foreskin. Let me type that right. There it is. Okay. So if you go to foreskinrestore.com, you're going to see this man who's had a lot of progress restoring skin and getting it to grow back. And you do this through different devices that just put pressure on the skin, and when you put pressure on the skin, it relieves itself by growing more cells, and so you can grow back quite a lot of skin over the period of months and years, and you can actually get some of the benefits back. So let's go over some of the benefits. When the foreskin originally covered the head, there used to be a layer of, not used to, but there originally is a layer of fluid called smegum or smegum. Basically, the foreskin has organs, and one of those organs secretes fluid that covers the head. Okay, the head has a layer of fluid over it at all times, so it's always moist. And so this makes sex different, and this makes your penis different, and this makes everything different. It also makes the sensitivity of the head of the penis a lot higher. And so when you lose the foreskin and you grow up without that fluid and without that organ, what happens is keratinization, or in other words, the head of your penis gets hard. And it's all relative. It's not like physically hard, right? But what it is right now is a lot harder than it would be if it was covered by the hood and it had that fluid all over it all the time. And so when people restore, what happens is over time they actually develop those benefits back again. And you regain more sensitivity. As in, when you regrow the skin cells, you regrow the nerve cells. You might even regrow some of those Meissner's corpuscles, and you might even regrow some of those sensitive sexual skin cells, okay, which could restore some of the pleasure for you that you've never felt before. So, leading edge stuff, it's been going on a long time. People have always actually been doing this. It's just this topic's never going to really get popular in mainstream, right? Because they don't want us getting sensitive. They don't want men regaining their sensitivities. They want men being numb. They don't want us being loving. They don't want us connecting with each other and our women. They want us being numb and disconnected, which is, in my opinion, why we're getting our dicks cut off on day one. All right, but let me also remind you that the beauty industry is using our foreskins. What? You think they're throwing it away? Why would they throw it away when you can use it to clear people's skin and people will pay thousands of dollars for it? See? So the beauty industry actually is buying foreskins, all right? And let's just say it's like a racket like this, where one country sells their foreskins to another country, and this country sells the foreskins to another country, and they both think it's exotic, so that people actually buy it, right? Because if U.S. had U.S. babies' foreskins, no one would want to buy the skin cream, right? But if you do this deal with Korea, and they go to Korea and be like, oh, hey, this is an exotic new thing, where they just use some of these cells, they're just scientific cells, and they clear your face. Basically, it's some satanic shit, alright? And so your baby's foreskin isn't even just getting thrown away, it's getting sold and used for profit. It is. So I just want to leave you with the truth that what you do to children, they do to society. And that the law of cause and effect is always in play. And that something is always either a cause or an effect of a cause. And nothing escapes the law of cause and effect. And so when we're talking about circumcision, we're talking about a cause. We're talking about a cause for a lot of pain and a lot of suffering that, men and women go through. All right, we're talking about, and we're questioning, what is this an effect of? How did we get to this position? How did we get to the place that we're in right now? And the truth is, we got here very slowly. So when I compare things like circumcision slowly going through the Overton window, becoming something that sounded extreme over 100 years ago, to something that's done to babies without a question, right? Scientifically brought through our consciousness from something that's extreme to something that's a necessity over time through the mental massaging of media manipulation. Well, when we talk about people wanting to put a computer chip in your body and you tell yourself that that's some extreme shit that you would never want to do right now, just know the people that are making these decisions, they got 100 years to wait. Because these are non-living entities and these aren't humans. They're running on a clock that we cannot fathom. So 100 years to get putting a chip in your hand from extreme to necessity is nothing to them. Just like 100 years to go from cutting a man's dick off being voluntary to cutting your dick off being something that happens to babies without question, taking 100 years for it to happen is nothing. It's nothing to the people in control. See what we're trying to fight against with. See what we're trying to heal from. See what we're trying to fight against by healing ourselves. We're trying to turn the tide on something that's been going on for hundreds of years, but we're trying to plant seeds that are going to be going on for hundreds of years too. All right, because this new Earth shit, we're going to be building it beside these motherfuckers. That's how it's going to go. It's not like there's going to be like a fall, and then it's going to be time to build a new Earth. It's multiple parallel dimensions. We're going to build the new Earth while these motherfuckers keep cutting dicks off. Straight up. That's how it's going to go. They want to keep cutting dicks off and raping kids? Keep going. Go ahead, do that. We're going to be over here in the trees. Alright? That's what it do. That's what it is. My kids ain't getting their dicks cut off. Okay? Alright, so I want to thank you. I'm sorry we had to end on such a serious note, but hey, this topic, I had to do it in my flavor. I had to do it in my way so that you could get it in the only way that I could bring it. And so that's American Circumcision and the Blueprints of Mind Control. Thanks for joining. I may or may not post this on my page. May or may not. No, I will. Alright, you guys. Thank you.